And so you're able to make them, and you're able to find others that way, and you're able to establish the breed that we today know as Dalmatians. Dalmatians are nothing but pointers who have black spots and white. A liver Dalmatian has the brown spots and the white. But those are Dalmatians, okay? And they pointedly develop them. And an example, I like to use dogs because dogs have the, if you've never heard this before, the greatest variety of mammals, of any one mammal, the greatest variety is dogs. And that's because we pointedly bred them for all kinds of things. But if I were to take the largest dog is an Irish deerhound. We have some people in the parish who raised them at one time. I went over there for dinner, and something bumped the back of my chair, and they said, it's just the dog, don't worry. So I turned around, and because I was seated, the dog was way above me. If the dog and I were standing here, the dog would come a little above my shoulder, okay? On the other extreme, I would take a teacup poodle, okay? So we put a little teacup poodle here and an Irish deerhound here. You know, this Irish deerhound has fleas larger than that dog, okay? and if this teacup poodle were to look over at the Irish deerhound, you know, it wouldn't see a dog. It would see a forest of hairy legs. That'd be about it. That's all it would see. It would never perceive a dog actually there. And yet both of those are descended from the wolf in about 600 years. Okay? They both come from the wolf. All dogs on the face of the earth, no matter their thing, have all come from the wolf, and by pointed evolution. I'll give you another example that we're very familiar with here in pointed evolution is turkeys. Do you know a wild turkey flies, a domestic turkey can't? A wild turkey has this iridescent brown feathering. A domestic turkey is white. A wild turkey has great feathering. A domestic turkey has very poor feathering. That's because we don't want their energy to go into feathers. We want it to go into meat. You know? But if you look, that's only 250 years. 250 years, and those two birds wouldn't even recognize one another. You know? So, pointed evolution we're aware of, and pointed evolution goes on in all kinds of areas. And probably the one that is most going on in this area has to do with plants. You know, so like if you take places with tomatoes, they always take the tomato that is largest, the plant producing largest tomatoes, that's the one they use for seeds the next year. The ones that, I mean, we do that in all kinds of things. But that kind of evolution goes on. You understand that. Now the first principle that Teilhard de Chardin works with, he says that God is the Lord and the sustainer of the universe. That's a basic principle. First of all, God created the universe, and he certainly believes he created it through evolution. But he says God created the universe. And secondly, God is not an absentee landlord. He sustains the universe. He goes on in the process of the universe. And I don't know how many of you have ever heard this, but that's basic Catholic theology. It is found in the theology of many religions that God sort of created it and stepped away from it. You find that in the Jewish tradition. That God sort of created it, and then he really hopes it works out. Like if you have ever saw the movie Oh God, that's a Jewish God. He created it, and some things he did really right. Other things were kind of wrong, you know. And if you remember in the movie that George Burns said, I don't know why I ever made the seed so big in an avocado. I don't know what I was thinking, you know. But so, I mean, he did his best, and he hopes it works out. But he's sort of a grandfather to it. But in Catholic tradition, the life you have in our tradition is like electricity. You do not have life within you. God constantly feeds you electricity. If you somehow were unplugged from God, you would cease to be, so would every memory of you. It would be as though you never had been. Okay? So our God not only creates, he sustains. And Chardin maintains that a basic thing. If that is true, the field of science is the study of what God does, and the field of theology is the study of who God is. And they cannot, by definition, contradict one another. because every person does what they are. Okay? If it's a duck, it quacks. Okay? You do what you are. So if science is a study of what God does, and theology is a study of who God is, it can never contradict one another. Because he's a scientist, one of the things to understand is while things can't contradict one another, you can have things that you don't understand how they work. And I think you all know about what was discovered yesterday, or the announcement yesterday, that when we design life and think about life, and when we're looking on life on other planets, a basic element of life is phosphorus. It is absolutely necessary for the thing of life. And in Mono Lake, they've discovered bacteria that have no phosphorus. And in place of phosphorus, they have, arsenic. Yeah, in place of phosphorus, they have arsenic, and they're still alive. I have no idea why that works. It completely contradicts the science. Well, what will the scientists say? The scientists will say, we obviously misunderstood life? No. Will they say, someone's calculations are wrong, it isn't really arsenic? No. They'll say, these are two truths, and God knows how they're related. And scientists will work on it until they figure it out. But you have to have a toleration in our world for contradictions you don't understand. The important thing is, you never let go of a truth. If this is a truth, you know, and this is the issue. I'll give you an example in moral theology that people seem incapable of holding on to the truth. I don't know why it is. It is absolutely undeniable today that homosexuality is not a choice. It's something someone is born with. It is also undeniable that biblically it is flat out forbidden. So you hear people today who hold the biblical position and they say it is absolutely forbidden, so no one's really born gay. And then other people say people are born gay and can't possibly be forbidden. Well, the fact is, we know from science that people are born gay. And the fact is, we know from Scripture, it is forbidden. How does that work together? We haven't worked out how it works together yet. But those are two truths. And it's really important as a believer, don't let go of truth. If it doesn't make sense to you, let's face it, you and I are not as bright as God. Okay? Just watch. Scientists have done that for years. For years, scientists have learned how to hold truths. They have no idea how they work. But if they're truth, they're not going to let go of them. And so that's what we want to do as believers. We want to hold to a truth. And you know, you see people have this happen. Let's say they have a horrible accident happen to someone who's very close to them. And they say, how could God do this? And they erase God. Well, the fact of the matter is God is in charge of the universe, and this horrible thing happened to the other person. How? Worry about the how, think about the how, pray to God to discover the how, but don't let go of truths. Those are both truths. Those are difficult things to live with. But if you want to be an honest person, you have to learn to live with truths that you cannot reconcile. Just don't let go of truths. Okay? The fact you and I can't reconcile them is no big deal. In our day, one of the major things that's going on is that science is moving so fast, even science can't digest what it's doing. I had an example the other day, the day before yesterday. A good friend of mine has had a terrible, terrible physical thing. And she has, for 20 years, been going to specialists all over. And 3 weeks ago, by accident, she was on a plane with a doctor in another field and found out what actually was wrong with her. And they're able to deal with it, although it's gone very, very much further than it should go. I'll give you another example of someone right here in the parish. We had a parishioner here who went to Israel with me on a trip, and she had a rash on her hand. And her doctor told her to keep oil on it and keep a glove on it. And on the trip to Israel was a registered nurse whose whole field of study was herpes. And the nurse wanted to know what was going on. And so she showed her. When she took off the glove, the nurse said, "That's herpes on your hand." He says, "There are a lot of varieties of herpes. Chicken pox is herpes." So she says, "That's herpes on your hand. You want to keep it dry." And she says, "It will go away. And you watch over a period of time, you'll learn how to tell when it's coming, and it will go away." Well, this woman who had the rash, I want you to know, is a very wealthy woman, had been to many doctors. It's not the least bit unusual today for science to grow at such a pace. Nobody knows everything, okay? Nobody. And you really need to become relaxed with that. We would all like to be able to somehow put it together. But particularly today, science is moving at a pace that is unbelievable. In fact, remember I told you that we speak of the world, the church in the world that she was born in, the church in the world that the church created. We speak today of the church in the world of science. Science is our world. And so the church is basically in that world. It says that when you look at the things in nature, you'll notice a couple of things that happen. When you take the basic elements of nature, the basic elements of